Cincinnati Reds trade deadline outlook. This is Ryan Finkelstein, managing editor at Just Baseball. I got Clay Snowden here, who wrote up the Reds trade deadline outlook. And obviously, you have a little bit of vested interest in this one as a Reds fan. How are you feeling going into this deadline with the fact that it seems like Luis Castillo, outside of a Juan Soto or a Pablo Lopez, maybe getting moved, which are kind of I think less likely than likely to actually happen. This is a guy that I think will move and will move for a big haul.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, he's the number one guy on the market. He has a year of control left. He's pitching absolutely out of his mind right now. And the Reds also have Tyler Mahle, who's probably a top 5 available player, or at least a top 5 available starter in my mind. So as a Reds fan, I'm just sitting back, enjoying. I'm following the minors more closely than usual with the Reds being bad, but sitting back and just waiting for the returns because I know it's going to be good.
Yeah, and you got those two guys that are going to net you what I think at least 4 impact prospects. I would think maybe even 5. I mean, imagine you could probably get 3 for Castillo, 2 for Mahle. I mean, that's a nice start. And then you have this just absolute found money in Brandon Drury. The guy's out of his mind. He's hot even heading into the deadline too, helping his trade value even more. I'm looking right now as a Mets fan thinking, I want Drury back because the Mets at this point need a right-handed complement to Vogelbach. He's the guy to me that makes the most sense. I think that any team looking for that guy that can match against left-handed pitching, Drury is at the top of the list right now. And neither of us had any indication this was coming. No one did. No one thought that Drury would have close to 20 home runs. Or is he at 20 now? He was at 18.
I think he's at 18.
Yeah, 18. So
Before
insane,
the
man.
season, I would heading into the season, I was clowning him on Twitter saying this is absurd. If you think Brandon Drury can be a starter or even a reliable backup, this
Try
is
your
minor
best
league
hitter
depth.
this season.
He's incredible. He's been absolutely incredible. Reds are going to cash in on this one, no doubt in my mind. A few weeks ago, maybe even a couple months ago, it seemed okay. He's got to slow down, right? Who knows really if he's going to be traded or if they just, if he's going to lose all of his value. Well, he's done nothing but mash since then. Legit contenders like the Dodgers are really on top of it and interested in Brandon Drury. Just about any contender should be interested. I know the Rays, the Braves could be interested as well with Adam Duvall going down. I am going to go ahead and say that there could be a small bidding war for Brandon Drury in 2022. The Cincinnati Reds, man, going to win the deadline.
I think so. I'm telling you. And you know what the thing I'll say about Drury is, I know it seems like this came out of nowhere and he shouldn't be this good. But if you watch his at bats last season, you're like, all right, there's something here. A former top prospect. He got off to a good start in his career early on in Arizona, gets traded to the Yankees. That kind of threw him off entirely. To me, this is just kind of a case of perseverance of a guy that always had the talent. He's continued to stay at it. And I know the Great American Ballpark thing is thrown around Drury. And if the last I checked, I think against left-handed pitching at Great American Ballpark, the WRC plus might be over 200. It was insane. But with that said, you look at his road WRC plus this year, every time I look, it's still at 115. So even if he's that guy to a contender, a guy with a 115 or a 120 WRC plus that has some pop, that can hit left-handed pitching, that can play second, third, shortstop in an absolute pinch, first base, either corner spot in the outfield. If you're a contender, he's kind of the perfect Swiss Army knife that you grab here. It's not going to cost too much. At the same time, though, the Reds are going to get a nice prospect.
He's anyone that was interested in Chris Taylor from the Dodgers coming into the year before his extension should be interested in Brandon Drury. He's a similar player, late bloomer, plays all over. I don't think he's as good as Chris Taylor, but in 2022 he is.
Probably better in 2022. Yeah. So yeah, here's my question. When it comes to Drury, as a Reds fan, are you looking for kind of a multitude of 2 or 3 prospects where one of them might pan out? Or are you just trying to get the one prospect, the best prospect available that's offered to you?
Personally, I would want the best prospect available. The Reds have had, kind of plenty of good prospects come through and young MLB talent. I want to add to that, even with the returns from Castillo and Mahle. I'm just saying load up the top as much as possible, because you could bring in, if Drury does bring back a top prospect, top meaning, top 7 in a system, let's say, you could revamp your own top 10 in a prospect system that's already very good.
It's and they also have these other ancillary pieces that could move in Tommy Pham, Kyle Farmer. I know you think has some value here too. So even with those guys, we're not talking about big returns, but you might get something.
That's how you fill out the rest of the flyer type prospects. Moving one of those players. If you want a left-handed masher, look at Kyle Farmer. He's literally one of the best in the entire league at hitting left-handed pitching. It's unbelievable. He can play all over. Former catcher, has caught at the MLB level, could do that in a pinch, short, second, third, first, left. He can do it all. He's kind of Brandon Drury light. Not as good, but a little bit of pop. And I think if you need a utility guy and you don't get Brandon Drury, Kyle Farmer is perfectly fine.
And I think that those are all the pieces I think we could see moved. The last little bit of your article is the large contracts. And if I'm a Reds fan, I'm hoping that they stay, in that the worst thing you could do is try to attach them to Luis Castillo and lower the value. That you got to get the prospect value as high as you can on this. I get that owners are cheap, and so we can't rule this out, but that would just be the worst outcome in my mind.
Yeah, so the 2 contracts you're talking about are Joey Votto, who has a non-movement clause through 2024, and Mike Moustakas, who's owed $20 million, I believe, is his option after 2024 with a $4 million buyout. I don't see either one getting moved. I don't see this team really adding. They don't need to clear up money to add before then. Write out the contracts. I know each of them do have a buyout. Just go ahead and pay that buyout. I don't think you need to be getting too complicated, making some really obscure deal and lessening the prospect pool. They already did that once. In my opinion, if you're going to do that, you do it one time. And they did that with Suarez, attaching him to Winker and sending him to Seattle. And what did it net them? 2 players who are fringe MLB/depth guys, an interesting prospect, and a 20-year-old who's now actually rising up the rankings. But he was the player to be named in the deal. The player to be named is the best return so far. I say stay away from that. Let Moose continue to just slam balls into the ground. Let Votto retire as a Red and go into the Reds Hall of Fame before he goes to Cooperstown.
I think that's the plan they should definitely follow here. So a lot of great stuff in this trade deadline outlook. You can find it at justbaseball.com. You can find all of our trade deadline outlook videos on YouTube at the State of Division channel. And you can find the audio version on our podcast feeds.